Shadow Priests use the power of the Void and Shadow, even turning into a shadowy apparition themselves to decimate their enemies. This is a really chaotic and fun spec to play, and I'm going to be going through everything you need to know to succeed in the War Within Season 1, in both an in-depth, for those veterans out there, but also beginner-friendly manner for you. So if you are new, don't worry, this video is fine for you. Let's jump straight in then and start off looking at our stat priorities. The main stat we want is intellect, and we're going to get more and more of this for a higher and higher eye level of gear that we get. Now, they're all obviously going to come with secondary stats, and the priority you see on screen is the general priority you need to follow. However, don't worry too much about this unless you're comparing the same eye level of gear. For example, I'm wearing 619 items on my feet here, yet my legs are 571. If I got an upgrade from 571 to 619, I don't care what stats are on it, it's going to be an upgrade because it's a higher eye level. So looking at the secondary stats, we have versatility, increases damage done, it increases healing done, and it also reduces our damage taken and is a great all-around stat. Haste is going to increase our attack speed and spell casting speed, meaning then if we're casting a spell like Mind Spike here or Mind Blast, it's actually going to cast quicker if we have more haste. Critical Strike, increasing, a chance to do double damage and healing. Then we have Mastery. This is unique to every spec, and as a Shadow Priest in the War Within, ours is Shadow Weaving. Your damage is increased by X amount, it's more for the more Mastery we have, for each of Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague on the target. And these are dots or damage over time spells that we're going to be putting up on our enemies. And I will go through these in detail later in the video. During our Void form, which is like an ascended version that we'll be going into at some point, all targets are going to receive the maximum effect of this. And that is what our Mastery does. Now, again, we are going to be going through the entire rotation, the spells we're going to be using and why, in more detail shortly. Before we do that, though, let's just have a look at what our set bonus is going to do this season from our gear. So the 2 set, the duration of Devouring Plague is increased. That's, again, one of the dots or damage over time spells we'll be putting on our enemy. And then the 4 set means that Devouring Plague increases our damage done, and multiple applications may overlap. So while we're talking about Devouring Plague so much, let's actually have a look at what it is really, really quickly. It's this one here at number 6 on my keyboard, and you can see I can put it on my target, and now they are afflicted by Devouring Plague, suffering X amount of damage every 2.7 seconds. A dot, or a damage over time, therefore. So next up, we are going to talk about the utilities and some of the defensives that we have available to us as a priest. The ones I am going to be showing you are what I consider the most important ones. You could talent into other ones, etc., and there are bits and bobs that I may not talk through, but these are the ones that you really should know about going into the War Within. On the left-hand side of this action bar is things that you're doing to your enemy. And on the right-hand action bar, this is stuff that is impacting us and our allies. So starting off on the left then, we've got Psychic Scream here, which is basically going to fear our enemies and make them run away. We also have Mind Control, controlling a mind of up to one level above ours for 30 seconds. So if we're level 80, we can mind control to level 81. Does not work versus demonic, undead, or mechanical beings. We can mind control them in really niche scenarios. This is going to be really, really useful for you. And then going on to the right-hand side, we've got over here, Purify, or sorry, should I Dispel Magic and Purify Disease. This will remove a disease and or a magic effect on your allies. We also have Leap of Faith, which will pull your allies to you. Let's say they are standing in something's about to hit them. You can basically just pull them to safety. We have Power Word Fortitude, increasing our allies' health for an hour. This will work on us. We can cast it on people in the wild. We can cast it on our party and all raid members. Now, when you do use it on yourself, if you are in a party in a raid, it will cast it on everyone. We have Angelic Feathers, where you can place an angelic feather on the ground, and you or any ally that steps over it will get a short speed boost with 3 charges of that. You can also make macros so that it will automatically place it at your feet and things like that. I do have a huge list of macros that I use on my Patreon account. Do sign up there if you would like to see those. And then on the bottom row, we've got Vampiric Embrace, filling you with the Embrace of Shadow Energy, causing you to heal a nearby ally for 50% of any single target shadow damage you deal. Just a great way of getting some healing back out of the damage we're going to be doing anyway. Desperate Prayer, really simply, is going to heal us for 33% of our maximum health over 10 seconds. So it's going to increase your maximum health by that for 10 seconds, but also heal you instantly for that. Lastly, we have Mass Dispel. Now, you can see here we've got Dispel Magic, and that'll work on obviously one person who we target on, but Mass Dispel is going to dispel effects in this huge area from up to 5 friendly targets, which is phenomenal. Let's say that all of the party you're in a Mythic Plus dungeon or PvP, Battleground, wherever you are, let's say that they all get afflicted by something. Well, you can just target this over them, and you can just take it off 5 people rather than just one, which is literally insane. And those are the main sort of defensives and utilities that we have available to us as a priest in Season 1 of The War Within. Now let's look at how it's actually going to come together then. So the rotation, the opener, and the utilities that we have at our disposal as a Shadow Priest. So the main thing we are trying to do is generate something called Insanity, and that is of course our main resource as a Shadow Priest. We have a few dots, Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch. We want to keep these up on our target at all times. Then we have our Mind Spike. This is also going to deal damage and generate some insanity, and it's also going to help reduce the cooldown on our Mind Blast. Again, Mind Blast will also generate insanity, and we want to pretty much use this on cooldown as well. Then we have our Shadow Fiend. This will also generate insanity every single time it attacks, and we can put this onto our target like a Rottweiler. And if you can get your targets to actually stay still, or you have time to, you can use Shadow Crash, hurling a bolt of slow-moving shadow energy at your target, dealing damage to all enemies within 8 yards. It is placeable, but it will actually automatically cast at your target's location, so you don't really have to worry about the positioning of that spell. Then we have Halo, which quite simply will blast out a halo, which is, very hard to avoid from your enemies. And because of our hero talents, it's going to kind of pulse in and outwards as well, meaning they're going to get multiple hits from this spell. And then lastly, we have our Void Torrent, which we can use on cooldown, channeling a torrent of void energy into the target, dealing damage over 3 seconds, and again, generating 24 insanity over the duration. Then, how are we actually going to spend all of that insanity? Well, it's Devouring Plague. Afflicts a target with a disease that instantly causes shadow damage, plus an additional over 7 seconds, and heals you for 30% of the damage done. This effect, if the effect is reapplied, any remaining damage will be applied to the new one. What you should do here, because basically you're generating all of this sanity to then spend on Devouring Plague, so make sure that when you put Devouring Plague on, the healer is CC'd, etc., or out of the equation if possible, so that you can add this as a bit of burst damage to really get your target down. Make sure you're always staying in shadow form, and make sure you're always keeping your Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch up. You can also use Void Eruption in your burst with your Devouring Plague, where basically you go into this enhanced Void form and can send Void Bolts at your target. When you're ready to finish them off, use Shadow Word Death. It's going to do 250% extra damage if they are under 20% health, but if it does not kill them, it will do some backlash damage for you. So when you're using these abilities, you can still be using your insanity generators, remember, to actually keep blasting them, and using any procs that you have, especially using Mind Blast on cooldown and keeping up your dots on the target, including Devouring Plague, of course, your biggest one there. When you see your Mind Blast proc, it will be instant as well, so do be aware of that. But we can be very, very bursty with these abilities as a Shadow Priest. We do have a lot of utilities. We've got Psychic Scream. Lets out a Psychic Scream, causing all enemies within 8 yards to flee and disorienting them. Damage, however, may interrupt the effect. We've got Fade. Fading out, removing all threat, and reduces enemies' range at which they can attack you. However, one thing it doesn't tell you on the tooltip is this talent here, Translucent Image. Your fade will actually also reduce the damage you take by 10%, so it can be used as a minor defensive as well. We then have Dispel Magic, dispelling magic on the enemy target, removing beneficial magic effects. And then Desperate Prayer, increasing maximum health by 40% for 10 seconds and instantly healing you, and that will last and that's on a 1.5 minute cooldown, a great defensive there. We do have our Mass D spell, so we can actually dispel within a huge area, and that is actually removing harmful magic effects from allies as well as beneficial from your enemies as well. Dispersion is another great cooldown we've got, dispersing the pure shadow energy, massively reducing how much damage we take and healing us as well. However, when we're in that, we cannot cast or use any spells, so it's a great way to get out of jail, if you will, get out of jail free card. It will also increase your movement speed when you're in it, so you really can bolt off really quickly while reducing damage taken and also healing at the same time. Plus, on top of all that, you can use it while you are stunned, etc. Then we have Power Infusion, simply increasing your haste by 20%, which we can use in our burst period. One thing to note on this is that you should actually use it on an ally, because Power Infusion grants you 100% of the benefit if you cast it on an ally. Meaning, if you cast it on an ally, they get 100% of the benefit, and you do too. We've got Powered Shield for a small absorption shield that we can use on ourselves or an ally if we wish, as well as Vampiric Embrace, filling you with the energy of Shadow Energy, causing you to heal a nearby ally for 50% of any damage we deal. We've got Silence, which is our interrupt, and then we've got Psychic Horror, which terrifies the target in place, stunning them for 4 seconds. For the PvP talents, I like to go with Phase Shift, step into the shadows when you cast Fade, avoiding all attacks and spells for 1 second. Interrupt effects are not affected by Phase Shift either. We also have Mind Trauma, siphon haste from enemies, stealing their haste per stack of Mind Trauma, and that can stack up to 9 times. Mind Spike and fully channeled Mind Flays actually grant a stack of Mind Trauma, and fully channeled Void Torrents grant 3 stacks of it, and that will last 15 seconds. You can now gain 3 stacks of Mind Trauma from a single enemy. The last one I personally like is a new ability called Mind Games, where you assault the enemy's mind, dealing shadow damage, and for the next 7 seconds, any damage they deal will heal their target, and any healing they deal will damage their target. And that is going to generate some insanity, and it's on a 45-second cooldown, meaning this, if they're getting really low health and they try to heal themselves, they can end up killing themselves with this ability, and it is absolutely amazing. And that is pretty much it. So for this build, we are going to be going with Archon as our hero talent choice. This is both available to Holy and Shadow Priests, and at level 80, you will be able to pick all of them. Now, when I say all of them, you do have to choose between the few choice nodes, but you will be able to take a point in every slot. You don't have to pick and choose. What does Archon do then? Well, it says here they're very devout and can be elevated from higher beings. It actually impacts our Halo spell quite a lot, and some of our other buffs and sort of utility spells, I would say. So let's have a look through them now. Power Surge. Casting Halo causes you to create a halo around you every 5 seconds for 10 seconds, and the radius of your halo is increased. Going down the left side, the damage dealt is increased. Your damage dealt is increased by 12% while Dark Ascension is active, and 20% while Void Form is active. We can then go to Incessant Screams or Shock Pulse. Halo damage reduces enemy movement speed, stacking up to 5 times, or Psychic Scream creates an image of you at your location after 4 seconds. That will also then let out a Psychic Scream. So I would say this one is situational, depending on what you need to do in that niche scenario, because it's more utility-based. Sustained Potency and Energy Compression. Halo damage and healing, again, is increased. Very Halo-focused, you're seeing here. Sustained Potency. Creating a halo extends the duration of Dark Ascension or Void Form, and if those are not active, up to 6 seconds is stored and applied to the next time you do gain that. In the middle, we have Resonant Energy, where enemies damaged by Halo take more damage from you for a short duration. And then again, we have a choice. We can increase the duration of Dispersion, or Powered Fortitude grants you additional health. Power Infusion grants you an additional amount of haste. And on the right side, again, Halo grants Surge of Insanity. We can also increase the damage done by some of our spells and the healing by some of our spells passively. And then Energy Cycle. Consuming Surge of Insanity has a 100% chance to conjure another shadowy apparition. Lastly, Divine Halo. Halo now centers around you and returns to you after it reaches its maximum distance. I do really like this one. Healing allies and damaging enemies each time it passes through them. So kind of doubling up our Halo, I would, with that. And that is the Archon hero talents that we are going to be taking. For the consumables in the War Within, things have changed a bit, including the enchants. So first up, you now have Nerubian Gem Weavers. This is how you add sockets from the Great Vault each week to your gear, and we can do this on the head, wrist, and waist. Another thing that's changed is we can now have an extra 2 sockets on our rings and neck, so we can add these with magnificent jeweler settings. You can see here 2 on the neck and 2 on each ring. Looking at the actual enchants we're going to use, we've got Chant of Winged Grace, giving avoidance and minus fall damage percentage on the cloak. The chest is Crystalline Radiance, giving intellect. Armored Avoidance on the wrist, giving avoidance. Sunset Spell Thread gives intellect and stamina on the legs. Scout's March gives movement speed. It's 250, I think. And then haste. Or you could put haste on here, you could put crit on here. Depends what you really need. I would say to go to haste on the ring enchants. But if you're at a very high eye level and you're really starting to min-max and, simulate your character, etc., then maybe actually a secondary stat would be better. So I'll leave that one up to you. For the, what are they called? Consumables. It's too early for this, guys. I've finished at like 8 a.m. or something, or 7 a.m. Flask of Tempered Aggression, Feast of the Divine Day, that's just going to purely add intellect. You can also go for Tempered Versatility. That's probably the best all-round one for everyone, actually. Mana Potion, if you need it, if you're healing in as a priest. Otherwise, use the Tempered Potion if you're in Shadow. Algari Healing Potion is obviously a healing potion. Algari Mana Oil is something you can actually now add on your weapon to add crit and haste. Crystallized Augment Rune to add a little bit of intellect. And then looking at the Culminating Blasphemite, this is really interesting. So it's going to add intellect, but it's also going to add a 0.15% critical effect to your character if you use different gems. And you want to use an emerald, an onyx, a sapphire, and a ruby. Again, sim your character to see which ones would be most preferential, or just go with what I've got here. And basically that means then that each of these different colors is going to give 0.15 effect on your crits. So if you only have rubies, it's only going to give 0.15. But if you have one of each color, it's actually going to give up to 0.60% effect on critical strikes. Don't use amber though, just use these 4 colors that I have shown you here. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVUI, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.